You're listening to Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC podcast. We're glad you're here. Welcome to our first inaugural podcast for Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC specific podcast covering all things Rhode Island FC. Jason, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, buddy?
I am excited. We have been working on this for a while. Getting the logistics set up for starting a podcast is no small feat, and especially if you want to do it right.
Eight years in the making.
I think that's just about as long as I've had this equipment. So, we're finally those two guys that have said we should make a podcast, and look at us. Here we are.
Living the dream.
Every day. So, for those of you that are just joining us, we thank you for coming in and participating in this somewhat of a social experiment. We're really excited to start bringing Rhode Island FC content to the masses, and hopefully being one of many voices that help you consume, soccer product here in Rhode Island. And I think it's only fitting if we start things off with the thing that we hear the most so far about this club, and it's that the stadium has been delayed again. For the, 72nd time, I think, at this point?
Yeah. What are we looking at, 2073? We're going to be ready?
When the stadium's finally actually there for us to play in?
Yeah, when Messi's great-grandchildren is ready to move over here to the league?
Well, it would be Ronaldo, right? With the you gotta make the Portuguese connection there. Ronaldo will be the one he probably actually already has kids here if you think about it. He probably did a tour at one point, saw one of the many fine ladies of Providence and said, "Hey, I'll hang out with you for the night." So, but so the stadium's been delayed. WPRI broke that the construction crews have used up or exhausted all the initial private capital and funding that existed to kind of kickstart the work on breaking the ground and getting that infrastructure in place. And because there are city and federal grants that were kind of in combination with the rest of securing the private capital needed for the construction of the park itself, there's now been delays. The construction crews are moving on to other projects in that, in this time period where they can get paid and, do their work, because they got to take care of themselves as well. When I read this the first time, I had a little bit of panic. I think the first announcement of these stadium woes started in March, relatively close after they announced Coach Kano for the team. And the first time around, it was like, whoa, like, what have we attached ourselves to? Like, is this actually a real thing, or was this a fever dream? Was this something that is a nice to have but may not come to fruition? And then the president dispersed quelled the concerns and the call outs that there was risk for the club to not start, and that the stadium with these woes was still on track as they had estimated. But, now I think this is honestly like the 9th article that a, major publication or news agency has published about, continuous stadium disruption. So, like, I have to ask you, as our episode 1 commentary here, like, is this something you think we should be concerned about?
It's not looking good, is it? Did you see about this guy who's part of the development team? Brett Johnson?
Yeah, he's one of the major players.
So did you hear about what happened with him in Tucson?
No.
So he's already tried to set up another soccer stadium back in Tucson, and it seems like a lot of similar things happened. Guy was making a lot of promises, and a lot of it kind of went sour, and eventually the team did not even make it into the USL. I think they're like an amateur team.
Oh, so this wasn't even like the Phoenix Rising project?
No. There's a completely separate team down in Tucson.
Interesting.
So I don't know. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
So to be the foil to your investigative journalism there, by the way, spot on, because I don't think I've heard that in any of the kind of social commentary so far. Is I feel like Rhode Island as a state, Pawtucket as a city, have kind of already tied themselves to this tree where they need this stadium deal to be done. There's collective assets that have already been secured through, again, like state grants, federal grants, and that that final portion or push really was just coming from a partnership with the city's execution of their kind of tax plan and the levies that they were going to kind of try to adjust to make this happen. And I think it was that last piece of public outcry that was like, it's very fresh in the eyes and minds of Rhode Islanders what happened to especially Pawtucket with the Paw Sox. The one of the oldest minor league baseball teams just uproots themselves and moves, and they don't move across the country, right? Like they just move up the street to the sexy new ballpark, and that was a concern. It was, and then Rhode Islanders are a lot of things, but they don't forget and they don't forgive. And so, I think it's not uncommon to hear the word, Paw Sox right now, like McCoy Stadium, be synonymous with the status of Tidewater. And that's a concern, because when you think about what needs to happen next, like no matter how good this club will become, without a stadium, it's not going to be that final product. We can play our first few years. And when I say years, I should actually call that back to just 1 year and say we should be playing 1 year in Bryant College and then be moving into our pretty new home. But, if that's not the case, there's trouble ahead. And I have not heard anything from the club after this most recent announcement the first time around. And I think maybe the second time they were quick to address like, hey, yeah, this is a part of the natural progression of what's happening. And they've been really radio silent. I think it's been over a week now since that news broke, and the club hasn't made any kind of announcement. And maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe that's one of those things where when you look at it from the, hey, we're just discrediting this, or we don't even have time to respond to this because it's that ridiculous. Maybe that's the approach that they're having, or maybe it's in a panic mode and they don't have a response because they really are in kind of these interesting moments of trying to figure out how to make their business, work. But I'll tell you this, man, I'm getting tired of hearing about stadium woes. I really want to see us finalize that capital, get the extensions on whatever lines of credit are needed, and just, lock this up, because the longer we don't have that stadium, the more likely we will not win in terms of creating the community and culture that I think they're after with this very ambitious project out the door. What are your kind of final thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's understandable to say, hey, like, stadium's not done. We're working on it. We'll get it done in a year or two. But it not even having to pull back because of funding, and then also the contractors are in a demobilization mode where they're actually taking stuff off because they're stopping working because there's no money. There's nothing to do. There's no money. So, don't want to go into panic mode, but it doesn't look good. And, you bring up the Paw Sox, and at some point, if there's no stadium, does the ownership group look elsewhere?
So Brett Johnson will just move on to his next.
I don't know. Whatever.
It almost sounds like you're believing he's a snake oil peddler, right? Just comes in like, look at this, I got this thing for you, and then, all right, well, I hear Detroit City wants the next hotness, so
yeah, just going around getting investors, making a mess, and then just saying later.
I think, for those listening that are new to this, we're not trying to be cynical. We're just trying to have that constructive moment here where I think it's different for Rhode Island FC because when you look at the names that are attached, especially Michael Parkhurst, like he's a Rhode Island native, right? And he has spent his entire career as a domestic player, right? Was never in the top pantheon of contributors to MLS records, but he's one of those most stable guys that performed well across all the different leagues that he participated in, whether it was the collegiate system or it was MLS itself. And after he was done, he could have done anything else. I mean, yeah, he played with the Revs, but he also played for the Crew, and I think he ended his career in Atlanta when they were at like their hottest moment, right? And he chose to come back, and this is where he wanted to start it. I look at USL as a league right now, and they are expanding, not like crazy, because that would sound almost that it's irresponsible with their expansion plans, but they're doing it in the right pace and the right capacity. And I'm sure there were other markets that he could have easily said, hey, this is where I want to put a team down. But he went back to his roots, and he believes in the New England product that produced him as a soccer player. And I think he wants to give back to that kind of momentum. So I don't see this as, I see the heart and soul of this project as being, from Rhode Island for Rhode Island. And I'm hoping that, it's not a capitalistic, sensational push to just develop properties in the area and then move on. I don't think that's what this is. And also, I don't think that, Rhode Island's willing to take that chance on it either. So again, all parties kind of just have to really get this right to deliver an exceptional experience and product on the field for Rhode Island.
And yeah, with a big decade coming here for soccer in the U.S., I mean, this is like the perfect time.
Oh, I'm so glad you touched on that, because either you cheated on the notes or we're completely in sync here. I can't think of a bigger moment for soccer in the country than this decade. I mean, they just announced now that we're going to also be hosting the FIFA World Cup and the FIFA Club World Cup. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny. As soon as that got announced, because we've never participated in it as any product of American soccer, people were asking like, "Oh, so that means all of our teams just are going to be playing in this league?" And it's like, that's not how that works. But again, it's because of the lack of us ever reaching that top flight of football. So you've got, what is it? So, I mean, if you run the numbers, right, you've got Leagues Cup, which just wrapped. You've got the Gold Cup, which we'll have again 3 more times. And we're at like the height of American firepower right now. Like the day and age of Mexico beating us is gone. Like we're not even in Dos Acero territory anymore. We're in Tres Acero territory with multiple red cards getting flung around. You've got the World Cup, obviously the biggest center of attention that you'll ever see.
And we've got 2024 Copa America being here in the United States as well.
Exactly. So you got the Copa, you've got the Club World Cup, you've got the women still on a tear defending, their multiple championships.
With their World Cup starting here this next month.
Right. So like, and then of course we have to announce, we have to say it.
Messi's coming too. Yeah.
Messi's here. And, we talked about this before the show, but if you had told me that there was a chance that Lionel Messi may draw in an Open Cup game to play at Bryant College in 2024, I would have said no way. I would have put it all on black and let it ride, thinking that was a sure thing. And now I don't know what is up. I don't know what is down. The universe is in a complete state of chaos. Messi's arrival is going to single-handedly lift MLS up onto a golden platter. And like everyone that has been invested in that league since its start in the 90s is just going to be making money hand over fist. It's insane. And kind of real fast to finish up on the Messi piece there. You saw the contract details, right?
I mean, $50-something million.
But did you see the mechanics for how it would work?
I've seen a lot of speculation. I don't know if I've seen the official word.
So yeah, there's no official word yet. You're right. This is still in the realm of speculation. But the fact that he's getting a percentage of the Adidas jersey sales to make his contract whole, and then also that sweet cut of his Apple TV money, which nobody knows how profitable that has actually been as an experiment between MLS and Apple. It's just the fact that he's coming and he's going to be making all of this type of money. And I think he's going to be celebrated more here than he has been in any other place. Because if you think about all the other countries that have seen him, they've grown up with him. They've been accustomed to him. We've all wanted to see him for, since the dawn of his career. And now he's finally coming here. I mean, we talked the ticket prices. What were the final ones you saw as numbers?
I mean, not some of the lowest ones, but like people were selling tickets for $1,200. I mean, we saw some for $500. They're kind of all over the place.
That's like early entry Taylor Swift money. Like that is like the Ticketmaster. You've got the secret coupon to access it. That's insane. I can't think I've ever spent more than $40 on a ticket for any soccer competition outside of maybe like the national men's or national women's team. Like that's insane. That's the kind of revenue he's going to jump onto. And USL, they're going to benefit from it, right? There are going to be players that want to move through the system, who want to try to get exposure in this time period while our country is more aware of soccer, now more than ever. And it's just it's a really good time. So back to Rhode Island FC, which is what we're here to talk about. They've got to get this right. They have to capitalize on this lightning strike and take full advantage of it, because if they don't and they come in later than what's already showing up, they're not going to be able to take advantage of those moments. And like, look at Boston, Gillette will be a World Cup site. You don't think that clubs won't be flying into TF Green and, maybe taking advantage of the facilities at Tidewater if it's ready before 2026? Like that's a really real thing, like to watch practices or exhibitions or warm-up play before they head over to Gillette, which, by the way, turf stadium. I don't know I haven't read the rules of what World Cup will require, but I thought they all required grass. So maybe Gillette will get a makeover at that point for the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't know. They quickly throw some grass over it and just say, hey, here you go.
Isn't that the most dangerous thing though? Like when the grass is loose over, like doesn't it need a significant amount of time? I'm not a grass man.
I'm not the greensman either. To do some research on this.
I think just about every plant I even try to keep alive just dies. I've got that touch. So we'd have to find out more. But yeah, so back to it. You're spot on. Like this is what a time to be alive. To participate or watch or be even remotely interested in soccer inside America right now. So having said that, and knowing that the stadium may or may be at risk, and we really don't know that, do you think this will impact the prioritization and objectives of the club?
No, because we're going to be a new product in a new market. Like to step aside from the cynicism, like I'm excited. I imagine a lot of other people are. It's going to be, the new shiny thing. The thing is, people generally will be somewhat accepting of a new team, but there has to be some sort of excitement, some results, like give time to grow. But a few years down the line, if we're still waiting on the stadium and the team is not doing well, then we'd not be in a great place.
So you think that this will come down to the results at the end of the day?
I mean, not right off the bat. To begin with, it's the new thing. Go out, support your team, get to see local soccer, But a few years down the line, if the results aren't there, then people might just be like, yo, Revs are just down the street.
That's interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that there's a certain amount of, there's definitely a diehard loyalty mentality in New England, right? Like like look at the Patriots. Everyone is still a Pats fan, but they also were like maybe a Buccaneers fan for a moment in time when Brady was in Florida. They would never say it outright, but like they'd watch the games and do like a silent golf clap maybe when no one was looking. I think that the Revs are too big for New England to be shared in the capacity of like it's something unique for the state. I've always questioned when I discovered where New England actually played, because when when I first learned of it, I was like, oh, they're playing like in Boston, right? Because everything is centralized into Boston, and I was too naive, too young to understand that like no, they actually play in Foxborough. Like where the heck is that? Oh, that's basically an hour away in terms of where you get accessibility to it. It's closer to Providence, I think, than actually Boston.
It isn't a weirdly central location to kind of, like, hey, it's as the name, it's for all of New England as opposed to like it's Boston's team.
Right. But again, it's synonymous, like Boston's kind of the heart of New England in that way. And I just think it was a tremendous miss for us to not put like any kind of professional sport, not saying that, the Friars or the Providence Bruins, or even the Paw Sox, like those don't count. But I just feel like Providence deserves its own thing. And by extension, Rhode Island, right? Like something that is exclusively for us and not needs to be shared with the rest of New England. And so while the Revs are definitely not far away, I feel like there's definitely a void. I mean, you've heard the old saying of like, if it's more than 12 minutes, pack a lunch, or, I've seen those people with the bumper stickers are like, I never leave Rhode Island. That's what this club is for, right? Like this is for that person. So I think there's more than enough opportunity, and it shows. It's reflected in how many season tickets have already been, pre-purchased. I don't know how many will be converted to actual like memberships now, especially with the stadium news. Or like the delays in general, but they did their research. Whoever it was that put this plan together, if it was Brett or Michael, like they didn't come into this as just like, oh, we've got a bunch of money and a dream. It was definitely technical, and I think that this can be very easily sustained by the state. And so to that point, when you have that kind of loyalty and you have that kind of desire, I don't think results matter as much. I think the entertainment value.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say right off the bat, right? Like of just thinking down the line, coinciding with not having the shiny new stadium either. If we're not doing so hot, but then boom, the cool stadium opens up, like that gives you more time, right? Especially if it's really nice, fun place to go.
And that's what I think it is. I think if you deliver on the experience and the games are at least entertaining 50% of the time, I don't think it's about championships. I want championships. The competitive side of me wants to see us get hardware as soon as possible. But I think to the average fan, or the fan that you have to win over in this World Cup period of like soccer's a fun and an attractive thing to go participate in, I think that's what you have to deliver. And I also think that's what like the most successful USL teams, and even some of the most recent MLS expansion teams, which, surprise, were USL teams at one point, that's what they're delivering on. Like some of them have come out the gate and they've just been losers. They've just been beat up by MLS teams. St. Louis City is probably the only exception to that rule so far, coming out with just a gangbuster of a year with relatively unknown players. And so to me, it's really about the community getting built up, getting the excitement, maintaining that excitement, and delivering some sort of version of an entertainment. Because at the end of the day, you watch a sport because you either are the ultimate diehard and just believe in the pain and the excitement that comes with that, or you're looking for something to like take an hour off of your mind and you're bored, or you're looking for that excitement. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of fans crop up as a result of that. So having said all that, let's, we can't just deep dive into Rhode Island, right? We kind of, we have to start at the beginning and kind of look back.
Dial it back.
You got to dial it back. And so what's really interesting is in some of the homework that I did for understanding kind of what was I don't know if you want to say the pedigree or the predecessors of what had been before Rhode Island FC. Yeah, it was really interesting. I didn't understand how much soccer has been ingrained inside the kind of, the DNA or the nucleus of Rhode Island and New England to a little bit of an extent as well when it comes to soccer. So, when we talk about soccer and we try to dial back that far, the first thing that should always come up in people's minds is the U.S. Open Cup. And for the uninitiated, it's I think I think they've proclaimed this. I don't know if there's a fact out there that would contradict. I didn't vet this. So if there's anyone out there, say, call us out in our socials that we got this comment wrong. But I believe they are the oldest continuous tournament in existence within the country. They've been running for over 100 years. I think 1914 was their start date. And with the exception of the pandemic, they've been in continuous, running even through like the world wars and all of that jazz. So what was interesting is and Jason, I'm going to put you on the spot here. First of all, do you know how many titles the most winningest club in the tournament has?
For the U.S. Open Cup, I don't. I'm just going to throw a guess out there. I'm going to say like 5.
Oh, man. You are either psychic or, again, cheating off of my notes. I'm not sure which, but I'll accept it either way. But, yeah, it's 5. So no club has won more than 5. And that privilege is actually shared amongst 3 teams. It's shared by Maccabi Los Angeles, Bethlehem Steel, and then more interesting, Fall River FC or the Fall River Marksmen. And for those of you that are younger or don't know the history lessons of Rhode Island and Massachusetts and that relationship, at one point Fall River was very much a part of Rhode Island, and then like any mobster lobster deal, we said, "Hey, we don't want these guys no more." And we made some land trades and picked up some upgrades and ditched out some of our lesser areas. But definitely a part of New England, definitely a part of Rhode Island at one point. And so they have 5 wins, and they tie for first place over 100 and what is that? That's almost 110 years.
Yeah, getting there.
That's insane. But to go even further with the history and pedigree of the U.S. Open Cup, the first Open Cup ever was held in Pawtucket. And of the first 4, 3 of them were held in Pawtucket. So like when we talk about, again, like the origin stories of soccer, it very much is alive in Rhode Island. And I think that's something that really, when you reflect back, that to me, that's almost an honor, right? Like that's the legacy that Rhode Island FC is going to have to carry on now that they are a soccer team in Pawtucket that will be carrying on that legacy. And furthermore, with the U.S. Open Cup, there were also multiple teams within Rhode Island that used to compete back in that day. And what's interesting is we only won it once in the Pawtucket city proper with the Pawtucket Rangers back in 1941. And that was the last time we also saw the Open Cup in activity within the state of Rhode Island. So it's been a while, and we got to get back to excellence. And what I'm saying now, predictions here, 2024, we're going to win the whole thing. Open Cup, here we go. We're going to beat Messi.
I like the confidence.
We're going to beat Messi in Miami because they'll sponsor the end experience. They're not going to come up here and play in Bryant. But we're going to beat him, and I'm going to say it's we'll be fair. Messi is probably going to score like 1 or 2. So it'll be 3-2 90th minute goal. That's my hot take. Put it on the books. Call DraftKings. Let's get this. I want to get this bet locked in now. But yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, did you even follow the Open Cup? Like, I know that as an MLS watcher, is that ever on your mind?
I watch them, but more often than not, you find that MLS teams, in my experience, don't always take it too seriously. It's like whoever happens to just get to the end, they're just like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'll just win this. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be taken too serious most of the time. So I've enjoyed some of the matches, but I can't say I've followed it too closely.
I always love when you get to like the semis, if there are USL teams still in. I follow them like you would follow like the relegation story in any other soccer league in the world. It's like, oh man, can Birmingham Legion make it all the way? Like, how far can they
go? It's always a great underdog story to see them far, or similar things in other leagues when you see, it's like, oh, semifinals FA Cup, Luton Town is here. Like, how did that happen? It's like, let's go.
Exactly. So now that we are rooted in USL, I expect to be following that Open Cup a lot more seriously. That in some ways will become the cup finals for us, because when you think about it too, the USL, their system is not similar to the MLS at all. It's not quite the same as what other leagues do. But like then again too, with MLS, like they've changed their rules for their own cup many a time. So it'll be interesting to get back into like a more pure soccer format from that standpoint. So I'll be all in on watching the US Open Cup and just tracking the teams. Speaking of the teams, do you know a lot of the teams that exist in USL? Have you followed any of them in the past?
Not so much in the past. In my excitement for our new team here, I've started watching some USL. I've known a lot of the team names. Occasionally see like, oh, hey, what's that guy doing down there? Like a well-known player, maybe towards the end of his career or something. But yeah, I've just kind of, got my interest peaked and have started just checking out some matches, finding them to be pretty entertaining.
I've started watching them as well, and like not just the highlights, actually watching the matches.
Oh yeah.
And what I've noticed is the goal scoring is at a greater level than I think what the top flight, like American product in the MLS produces. I don't know how exactly to quantify it, but like where maybe a game in MLS will go 2-1, that same game in the USL will go like 4-2. Or 5-3, and I hate to be that guy that's like, oh, soccer puts up too few numbers, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but like sometimes it's just fun to watch like five goals go into the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you've got no foot in the game, just like sure, just.
But they're not always blowouts either. Like they're both teams seem to be competitive enough to put numbers on the board. It's just like maybe the defense is like, maybe the style of play is like, hey, like again, we're putting on an entertaining product, so hey, you defenders, maybe just don't jump on this header, Like I don't know how to justify it.
I would think that it'd be, from a realistic standpoint, right? The league probably has to look at, like, if they want to have players develop and maybe grow and maybe hope for that sale, you're always going to want to bet that money on an attacking player.
Which is interesting when you think about how domestically so many of our defenders and goalkeepers and defensive mids are the players that, get the call-ups to go and play abroad or, be in some high-level academy, in some other country. Like, it's rare.
Yeah, it does seem like the U.S. men's national team has had a history of some pretty decent defenders and goalkeepers, but like the mid and attacking is kind of it's up and down. We're not always have the same, some of the best players in the same generation always.
I mean, it was before Christian Pulisic. It was
Mr. Donovan
and Dempsey, and they both washed out really quickly in the Premier League.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Oh, they did not have long careers in the EPL compared to their MLS stats.
No.
And they were hated, or they were constantly
Dempsey
judged
definitely does. He's got some kind of fun moments over there. I wonder if maybe their brand of just being an American soccer player, maybe they oversold them a little bit. They kind of would have done a little better playing at a slightly lower level team, so they could be kind of, I want to say more of a focal point of the attack, but not just a role player in a sense of,
like, we don't have the star power to pull off those, like, look at me, pay all the attention to me, I'm going to take the team on my back here.
Yeah, and it was just because there's such a hunger for quality soccer, I think, here in the States, and that so many people are watching the EPL abroad, that there is a draw to have, an American on your team. I mean, how many Chelsea Pulisic fans are there? Like,
I don't know, if you go on their forums,
anytime he scores, it's like an earthquake goes off with the
definitely. So yeah, but to back to the USL component of this, I'm super excited. I think they're going to fit well in terms of the niche. I do believe there's a scarcity of USL product this high up into the country. Looking at the heat map, the closest clubs, I think, geographically are going to be, of course, Hartford Athletic. Rest in peace to Tab Ramos's career. Just got sacked. I mean, that guy has done so much for the men's national team. He's had his kind of fingers on the pulse of many of the domestic products, youth academies. That was a guy I was just like, man, when is he going to get his big break? Hartford goes and splashes the cash on him, and trying to make a competitive, champion winning team this year. It just does not come together, and Tab is just disgraced and removed from the club.
Yeah, I mean they're in last place in the conference, so they're not doing so hot.
But I'm like, when you see someone of that quality and he's given a little bit longer of a leash, is that just down to bad luck, or is that?
I don't know. I can't say that I followed it too much. I did read up a little bit on what was happening. He going back and forth between a 4-back line and a 5-back line. Trying with one of them being kind of like a sweeper where they move up in possession. A lot of some of the players from last year did not kind of move over. So I don't know, just a lot of change, and couldn't kind of get any solidity. Maybe what he wanted to do.
R.I.P. Tabby. R.I.P. We wish you well in whatever you do next. But also with Hartford Athletic, screw them, because whether they like it or
geographically, that's just like that's going to be our rival. Yeah. They're right over there.
Exactly. I've already seen in the Defiance 1636 supporters group, which, again, those listening for the first time, that is our supporter group of our kind of ultra fans that are really propping up the heart and kind of voice right now of the fandom for the club. They're already ready to go there. I think they're completely content with just going there this year and just booing that club in one of their games, just so that they can get inside their minds now rent free and say, we don't even have a club and we're better than you already. I mean, we can
go onto the store, show up decked out in the gear, and just troll them.
No, I you love to see those kinds of things start so early on. And we'll touch on the supporter group in one of the next couple of podcasts. I'd love to have their capos come in. We've met them. Ironically, they didn't know what we were planning to do at the time, and I wasn't, going to say, hey, I'm starting a podcast and I want to interview you at one point. But they're really good guys, really have the right sensibility, I think, of the project that they want to undertake. So really excited to see what they do. But USL, like after Hartford, I think it's Indy 11, which one of the coolest names. We got to touch base on the name in a second here. And then I think Detroit City FC is the next closest. So Michigan, by geographic representation, maybe one of the closest. I'm not good at maps, man. I'm not good at maps.
Philadelphia is not too far away.
Okay. Again, Pennsylvania, that's a mysterious place. Okay. Who knows how that works?
I don't know. I was mostly drunk when I was there. I can't tell you.
I think Detroit is over. Again, users, school us on maps.
Straight line is the...
Listeners, yeah, if you know how a map works.
You got to drive over a lake to get there, maybe.
You got to go through Canada to get back to Michigan. That's a problem, you know. But yeah, so I'm super excited for. I think this fits the right kind of mechanics of putting a team this far north, looking to really enjoy kind of that product as it comes out. But let's touch on this name for a second, because you know they unveiled the crest last year, right? This isn't, at this point, this is old news, you know. And for those of you that haven't seen it, it's at RhodeIslandFC.com. It's a really great kit. I think they nailed the logo and the story.
The logo, the colors. I love it all. But as you're alluding to, a little safe with the name.
I hate safe. I was hoping, and I don't mean any puns here, but I was hoping for a big splash. I was looking for something that would have been, you know, part of the Rhode Island kind of ethos or essence, and then also kind of going to Rhode Island's, you know, or to sporting culture in terms of how we name soccer clubs or anything like that. But what was worse to me, and I'm sure this is a hill I may have to die on, but if you're gonna do it, don't do football club, do soccer. Like, we're never gonna listeners, I hate to tell you this, but we're never gonna change to football. Football is a different thing in this country. It is established. It is more popular. It is more successful as a product. We've lost that fight. Let's move on and fight other things that matter. This should be RISC. And if they go and change these things now, I have a lot of work to do on like our social packages. So don't change it. But I'm over the FC.
Yeah, piece. It is a little bit of a losing battle when it comes to trying to change the minds of a whole nation.
Yeah. And like, it's okay. If America does one thing well, we do our own way on things, but let's literally lean into being on our own on this. Like, if we're going to be Soccer Nation, let's be Soccer Nation. And so, yeah. So, but let me ask you, just off the cuff, would you have done something else with the name? Have you thought like, oh man, I could have done this and it would have been better?
Off the top of my head, no. But I mean, if I'm coming up with a project for my own soccer team or working with a group of people, you know, I definitely would have shopped around, got some ideas, you know, taken a shower, had some thoughts, you know, as one does.
You know, and that's what's really interesting to me is that the marketing group that came up with the logo, the colors and everything, I know that they kind of shopped some of the conversation on the team name. I think they were probably pretty early on established that this would be Rhode Island FC, but I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly in that room when they were saying like, okay guys, it's between the Rhode Island, you know, Quahogs or the Rhode Island, you know,
lobster rolls.
They're both trending well. Which one do we want to be? And you know, they just went safe, and I respect it. It's not exciting, but man, I would love to know what those other name opportunities would be.
Yeah, as one of the first original colonies to tell England to go, you know, suck it, and then to just, you know, go traditional and just take the football club from them kind of thing. Like, yeah, we could have done more. You know, something else.
And that's the crazy thing too, is like when you look at the names historically for the New England area, I mean, the Revolution, that's a great name. It's a great name. But like even further back, you know, you had like the Minutemen, which that may not work out too well these days, you know, guns or the other kind of innuendo. But you had like the T-Men, like, come on, like you had Sharks, you know, okay, maybe that's not great. Whalers, not great. But like you had other options just to go back to the historical one. In fact, even though they're in a much lower division, but back to the U.S. Open Cup with that 5-time champion in the Fall River FC, they were originally known as the Fall River Marksmen. They were literally founded by some guy named Mark, and they were Mark's dudes. And
okay, they weren't like snipers or something.
But I that kind of naturally progressed into that as Mark moved on and off this mortal coil, and so they're bringing that back. So like they're just kind of inheriting this pedigree. I don't know what copyrights exist after 100 years, but they're doing that. So like I don't know. It just again felt kind of safe. Whatever. We're here now. It is what it is. It's Rhode Island FC. Question for you: do you think it will be more natural for us to see and hear RIFC, or do you think it will be Rhode Island FC when like the club's talking about themselves, or like that like natural chants or conversation topics? Like which one do you think it'll be?
I think they'll probably use the full like Rhode Island FC. They won't they won't do the full Rhode Island Football Club. Maybe
no one's going to do that.
some press statements or things like that. They'll bust it out. But I think RIFC will be more of like, when you're talking more casually in a company who actually know.
Okay. But do you think it'll ever be like Rivka? Not too soon. Too soon. Too funny. So I'm excited to see, kind of what they bring to the table in terms of that part of the culture. And, there's so many other things that we're going to unpack over the next, several weeks of episodes. We need to talk more about the stadium, not the news per se, but the actual design and implementation of kind of what they see there. I'd love to get closer to kind of the intent behind the team from a culture and community standpoint. I think they're already doing great work. If you've looked at their socials, they've been at most of the major events recently, just putting the brand out there and getting people excited. I definitely want to talk about, the Coach Cano's strategy on how he's going to set up this team. He's in a really interesting position when you think about it, because, not many coaches get to build from the ground up. And when I was looking at the kind of dynamic of how USL teams are built, they seem to be kind of divided along this line of a lot of collegiate divisional talent that, maybe wasn't quite good enough to go to the next flight up. And then it's combined with like one or two stars that are maybe on the wrong side of, 35. And then, or they just have problems or couldn't penetrate teams, even though they have the caliber of talent. And then the rest of it's usually shored up by either rejects from other soccer in America, or it's their youth academy. And so, like, that's really interesting to me. Is like I've not heard anything about a youth academy design for Rhode Island FC. Like, and if they do actually do that, that's 10 years down the road, right? Like that's not an immediate payoff.
Right. That's something we're going to have to be looking towards the future.
Right. So, but then you'll be looking at all of the local organizations from AYSO up to like, the early division.
Hitting up the local colleges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it really is more than just someone putting 11 names on a roster and putting them out there on the field to play. And I'm really excited to kind of learn about that. And then, of course, we want to start being able to use this platform to interview these individuals and kind of get their direct hot take and let them be the ones driving kind of the conversation, instead of us just sitting here and speculating on whether or not we're going to have a season next
nonsense. Year. Get some actual experts in here, maybe people from the community.
So having said all that, what's like the number one thing for you? What do you want to see out of this project, this program?
I'm just excited to have, local soccer here. I mean, in local in the sense of not to drive out of state.
Classic Rhode Islander. Do you think that it will become the biggest priority in your soccer acumen, knowing that you follow so many other clubs and leagues and, you know, like you have a consumption for that? Do you think this is something that is going to dominate your soccer love?
It as of all things, you know, time will tell. Generally, I found that whatever is like my local team is like my main one, as much as I love like watching European soccer for just like the higher level entertainment to a certain extent. Like, not to say that like it feels fake, but it's not the same when it's not something you can really say like, you know, I don't live in England, I don't live in Germany, you know what I mean? Like it's not the same.
I respect that you said European football and didn't just immediately pronounce or profess your teams, so that we would immediately alienate, you know, the new listeners that come on board and be like, what do you mean he's not a Liverpool?
You're already selling us out that we watch other soccer.
But you know, but that's true, right? When you think about other people who already are invested in like the Bayerns or the Liverpools, or even, you know, the Arsenals. but understanding, you know, that they already have a passion for the game, and those are the individuals that wake up at, you know, 7 a.m, grab a beer with their friends and watch a game.
And I think for soccer in America, realistically, it is important to know that, you know, we're not going to be the superior product. There's so much more money and history out there in Europe. But what we want to do is be that kind of local alternative, right? Because like live soccer is something else compared to, you know, there's only so much you can get from watching a game like on a TV, but to like that live energy with like when you have supporters groups singing and chanting drums and throwing flares in the state, you know, like the energy you get from a live game is, you know, is unparalleled.
Defiance 1636 has already showcased their multiple smoke flares that they're ready to bomb out on any participating match that they're going to attend. So they're already bringing the heat. They're
Nice.
ready. They're ready to mess stuff up and take names. And I know we talked about this offline, but I love the idea of, you know, like the away days where we just go to our competitor club and burn one of their boats. Like it's Gatsby days all over again. Just show up and welcome to USL. We're burning your boat right now. That's going to be Defiance. Take notes. All right. Just start taking the notes. We got you. But no, I'm really excited for it. I agree holistically with everything you just said. I think that we have an opportunity here, and as long as it's not squandered, I think that there's an ample space for us to win over the diehards and the purists who have been watching soccer before Rhode Island FC came about, and then just putting that curiosity and capturing, you know, the curiosity of people wanting to watch something that is different than what they're accustomed to. And I will tell you this, when I can stop seeing people on, you know, Facebook, on news posts, on Reddit saying soccer's dumb, it's like a 1-0 game. Like, for those of you that are listening here, I'm not trying to offend, but like, you need to realize that football, your gridiron football,
It's the thing is, it's not the same sport, and too many people compare it, and it just shouldn't be compared.
But wait, it's not that it's the same sport. You want to hear the biggest lie ever told? Gridiron football is just as low of a scoring game as European football.
Divide by 7.
Yeah, they just inflate the numbers,
and their scores are 4-5 instead of our like 2-1.
If you make a touchdown worth 3 points, and you make a field goal worth 1, so a touchdown is 2, conversion is an extra point. You could have a game that's literally 4-1 or 4-2. And like people would be like, oh, but because that game suddenly becomes 28 to like 13, it was a high scoring game. Like, come on.
If all of a sudden free kicks were worth 2 and
yeah, if you score off a set piece, you get 5 goals.
Olympico is a 3.
Oh, that's 10. You score an Olympico off a corner, that's 10 points, sir. If it's an own goal, -7.
Yeah, you could just make up rules and make soccer a high scoring game.
Yeah, if you score a goal, it's -7 for the other team. So I don't know. I find it so funny that, you know, there's still this argument from Rhode Islanders too, who, especially the ones that are against the tax bill, like, oh, you know, funding for a dumb thing, for dumb sport, for dumb scoring, like, not my money, not my backyard. Come on, guys. This is 2023. We've got a bunch of World Cups we got to host. Get your heads out of your butts.
Yeah, hopefully when they turn up, you know, you change their minds.
And they'll be like, I've loved soccer my entire life. I was there when Pele was around.
Check out this Maradona tattoo I have.
I did a bunch of cocaine to get it beforehand. Too good. Well, I think as a first episode goes, really excited to bring this product out to listeners. It's definitely going to be an organic process. We apologize for any facts that we didn't get right on the initial go.
We can correct one already. Sounders did make it to the Club World Cup a few years ago when they won what our Champions League is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but they got knocked out the first round. So it's like
doesn't even were they even there then? Does it even count?
They showed up and immediately went home. But that was like what, our first appearance there, pretty much.
Well, no, that couldn't be because the
tournament had changed at some point, though. It was not technically the same thing. Yeah, we'll have to do some more research on that. But like
or as a USL based podcast, we can just feign ignorance and say,
I don't what MLS what? I never heard of that thing.
Exactly. But yeah, so if there's any mistakes, this is definitely going to be an organic process. We intend to release episodes once a week. We haven't really picked a definitive date, as we want to make sure that works well with each other's recording schedules, as there's a lot of moving parts to record a pod. I think sometimes people just think it's like 2 people on a cell phone just talking about their feelings, and, you know, to do it at least decent, and I by no means am saying this is a decent podcast yet. There's a lot of equipment and there's a lot of work that goes into producing something like this. So what we can commit is that by the time you start hearing these, we will have these out once a week. We just don't have that definitive date lined up. So listeners, let us know what date you think makes the most sense, or what date you want to hear, day of the week that you want to hear this and hear our beautiful voices in your listening ears. But on that note, you know, Jason, where can they find us?
All right, guys, you can check us out at RAFC Podcast on Twitter. We got one of those Instagrams at Raising Anchor. And we have a website name. We don't have anything attached to it yet, but we'll get that figured out sooner or later. RaisingAnchorPodcast.com.
Yeah, we got to put the merch out there. We got to sell all the stuff to fund our podcasting ways. But yeah, so the website's not there yet, but maybe by the time you've heard this, it will be. And we're just really excited to bring this group news, opinion, recaps, and kind of all things, again, related to Rhode Island FC. So on that note, I'm your host, Matt Entrican, and this is my beautiful co-host, Jason Carey, and we will see you guys next time.
Catch you guys later.